current events, injustice, police brutality, systematic racism, politics. What say ye? Enough said. Welcome back to Enough Said with your hosts, Jemo, Carolite, and Cherry Poet. Today's topic, injustice in America. Jemo, what say ye?
Oh, I have a lot to say about this topic because, as you know, I work in the justice system and I've seen a lot of injustices. Let me start by telling you, you guys can talk about the obvious, but let me just start by telling you what happens in courtrooms every day, or often, I should say. First of all, injustice begins way before the courtroom, as you know, with all the arrests and the racial tension and the George Floyd issue and Rayshard Brooks and all those people, Breonna Taylor, who were racially profiled and arrested. It starts where racism profile you, but it doesn't end there. When you go to court, it depends. People debate which judge you're going to get because the judge you're going to get is going to determine the outcome of your case. And I can tell you right now, and I'm going to be straightforward, a lot of my clients, Black, white, Spanish, or otherwise, especially white and Spanish clients, well, not especially, but they too, it surprises you when they say, you know what, I hope I get a Black judge. Can you believe that? They, especially in a criminal case, they hope they get a Black judge most of the time. Now, don't get me wrong, there are conservative Black judges, but overall, you will get a better sentence if you get a Black judge, regardless of your race. If you're Black and you get a white judge, and you're white and you get that same judge for the same exact crime, you're liable to get 3 times the amount of sentence that the white person gets. For example, if the white person, say they committed aggravated assault, they beat up somebody, same crime, same amount of beat up, you know, they had to go to the hospital, both of them nose got broken. The Black defendant is more likely for that crime, and don't get me wrong, they look at your priors too, but let's say both of them have the exact same prior, one prior offense. The Black person is more likely to get 10 to 15 years in jail, while the white person is liable to get from probation to 2 years in jail. This is injustice in America.
Yeah, I have seen several postings where they put the offense, you know, based on a Black person versus the offense based on a white person. And it's just horrendous. It's horrendous to see the vast difference in sentencing, you know, and it brings me back to what Nick Cannon was saying, you know, because never before had anybody explained about the Caucasian race and the reason they operate the way they operate. And it just really shows again how deep the systemic racism goes. It goes so deep in this country that, you know, it's so many layers of the onion that it will take a while before we can really peel this thing and get America to where America needs to be, which is equal liberty and justice for all. Cherry Poet?
Yeah, injustice is a serious thing, and you know, like you said, especially with the judicial system, Black people are treated differently, unfortunately. I don't know about the carcass where they struggled, but you know, we struggled too. You know, I don't, it's still something that I don't understand. It's something I don't get, and it's the mentality that, you know, Black people are criminals. You know, the whole mindset when they see a Black person is, you know, criminal. So when you do something, like you should be punished. When a white person does something, we can see with him, you know, we can work with him. He's just going through a tough time right now. It's hard. It's horrifying. You know, I saw this story on the Justice Network where this Black kid was sentenced to like 100 years for robbing a store at gunpoint, you know, and it was like, you know, you need to make him pay so other kids his age will know not to go robbing stores and with guns and stuff. But it's crazy, you see it every day. You see it every day. I saw a kid. I don't know if the story is true. I didn't check into it, but there was posting that this black kid is in court. I don't know what the crime is, but he asked the judge to pretend as if he were a white kid, and this is a young black dude, like maybe 20-something years old. It was so funny, and I wrote under it, "You did the right thing."
Yeah, because what's happening? What's happening now? That's what they're doing. See me as a white person because they know they'll get a more humane and hopefully a better sentence, because it starts in the minds of the judges. And let me tell you something. I have seen, even in the criminal aspect, even the civil aspects, I have seen where the same exact car accident, the same exact injury, and the white person will get 3 times the verdict that the black person gets, sometimes even more. And guess what's surprising? I have seen black people give black people less verdict as well. It's like they don't believe in themselves, they don't think you're worth it, or they don't know the value of money. So somebody breaks their leg, the white person will get $200,000 because they can't walk and they're disabled. And the black person will get 10,000 or 15,000 or 20,000 from the white jury and sometimes from the black jury. So it's something that's ingrained in the black person from slavery, that we're not worth much, I don't see it as much in the criminal justice. The black person will give a better sentence, generally speaking, a better verdict, but definitely I see it in the civil area.
Yeah, I know personally a guy. I was in therapy driving for a living, basically. And I was at a stoplight and someone slammed into my back, and doesn't look like I'm getting much. Well, I'm in therapy with this white guy who fell on a job and hurt his shoulder, and he told me that at the time his lawyer told him he was looking at about $75,000, and he's like, man, I'm gonna go for another 6 months or another 3 months because I'm not taking 75,000. And I'm thinking my lawyer's tripping. I got slammed in the back. It's even on the dash cam. When they pulled the dash cam, it showed how hard it threw me damn near through the window, and my lawyer's talking crap, and I'm like, wow, you see what I mean? You hurt your shoulder, you're a white guy, your lawyer's talking 75 grand.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm being offered, this is the system.
Peanuts.
This is the system.
Yeah.
It sucks, and I really don't know how we can change it. I don't know if it's all about voting in some different judges. I don't know what the case is.
Part of it.
It is so deep within, and what's really unfortunate is that Black people can be so forgiving, and Black people tend to, like you say, we settle for so little compared. Yet because the Black is coming from slavery, for example, when you get $10,000, to that Black person, it's like a big deal. And, and the same issue to a white person, they would need $100,000. They would need $1 million for the same thing. They look at it from a totally different perspective, and it's just amazing.
Because they're used to having.
Go ahead, SharePoint.
That's because they're used to having, and most Black folks are used to not having. So when you get 10 grand, you see possibilities.
Yeah, I remember.
You know what I mean? You
That's
see, oh, I could do this now where I couldn't before. And it seemed like something. And I'm going to do something funny. I do, guys, I'm a Trumpster. But, a couple months ago, Trump was saying something about giving Black people some money. Like, I don't know how much it was, like $100. He's going to give Black people some money. And black people online saying, yeah, take that money and still don't vote for him. But I remember when I saw the post, I thought to myself, how small does he consider black people? You know what I'm saying? I felt some kind of when I saw the post, but it's because they know we just don't hit like that. You know, so when we get up $1, it feels like something.
What we have to do is value ourselves more. We have to think of ourselves as worth more than what we are conditioned mentally. Even I fell into that trap when I try to convert the 1 acre and a mule, and I'm saying, well, maybe that's 100,000 or 300,000 now, and you, Chair Point, say it's $1 million. Yeah, that's what we deserve. We deserve more than that. But why do we first, even myself, resort to the smaller amount? Is because we're taught since slavery that we weren't worth much. In fact, slavery, we were working for free. And because of our free work, we made the white man rich, and so they value money and they know that a little bit of money is not worth it. One other area is in jobs. Oftentimes a white person and a black person is doing the same job, and the white person making almost twice as much as the black person. And that is so unfair. And you know what they do? They say, it's such injustice. They say, don't talk about your salary. They make that a rule on the job. But sometimes you may be friendly with a white person, or they relate to you or whatever, and they will tell you, not often, what they're making. And you're like, oh my God, we're doing the same job, and they're making twice as much as I am. So unfair.
Here's the thing. Sometimes the whites themselves don't even know that they're making more than their black counterparts. So how you hear about it is like you'll be in the lunchroom with them if you get along with them, and you're just sitting around in the lunchroom, and right. They have no qualms saying, I only make $60,000 a year, and then you're like, what? Because their black counterpart is making like 40,000 max, you know what I mean? So in the workplace, it is very prevalent, and it runs so deep. And I even heard like lately that there was I don't want to say something that's incorrect, but I think someone was trying to pass a bill where it could be equal pay for equal work, and I think even that was knocked down. But
I can just add to that and say, we know women and men are being paid differently. So there's several bills out there that have equal pay for equal work between male and female, because that's another injustice in America. Women are paid less for the same work that they do as men, and that's another form of injustice. Go ahead, Chair.
Are these bills being passed? We can only keep pushing and keep fighting and keep making noise about these injustices, and hopefully it will change, but I just don't see change coming too soon.
Can I tell you another area where there's injustice too? And you wouldn't believe it, not in every school, but in some schools. The teachers grading those papers. This is why the black person, as you hear all the time, have to work twice as hard to get the same grade as their white counterpart. Because sometimes the teachers will give them a lower grade, and it's all based on inherent racism, even when the teacher does bias in their hearts and in their heads, even when it's not overt, it's, unconscious, but it happens consciously as well. So the injustice in America is in every area you can think of. Every area.
Yeah, with the teacher school thing too, again, when it's a rich parent, just like the parents who are able to buy their kids' way into college, when it's a rich parent, and I think sometimes, especially when it's rich white, and when you have a black teacher, I think that black teacher is so afraid to give the kid the grade that they deserve. So again, even the black teacher would be more inclined to give the white kid a BLI and a pass and a better grade than the black kid for fear of the white, getting angry, for fear of retaliation, and in order to keep their jobs.
Right. Go ahead, Charlie.
Another, injustice is in theater, in music. They pay, that's why, don't quote me on the number, on the dollar amount, but it was Monique who is suing everybody, and I heard she actually won. She actually won her case against them, because they were offering her something like $25,000 for the role, and they paid the white counterpart something like $3 million. So it's like a wide difference in what they're paying, and he's like, no, I'm not having that. And that's when she spoke to everybody, and they agreed with her in quiet, but in public they fronted on her. So that's the beef with her and all of them came about, because she came straight out. She's like, all y'all called me and said you agreed with me, and then you go out in public and talk about me crazy, he's trying to start stuff. And that's when Steve Harvey said, man, we black out here. You can't be talking down in public. We black out here. Like the yes massa mentality. I've always known that about Steve. He's very cautious. So we black out here. You know what I mean? So he yeah. What are we gonna say about injustice other than it happens every day in everything we do, in everywhere we go in America? It's something that I have to face, and it's just like slavery. It's not something that's going to be easily amended or changed.
Let me say this: Steve Harvey has also had his fair share of injustice. His show was very popular, the Steve Harvey show. I used to watch it when I can, and they replaced him. Is it that Kelly Clarkson replaced Steve Harvey?
Yeah. Yes.
And her show, I've seen it once or twice, not very often, and it's not bad, but it's not as good as Steve was. And so here we are, they're replacing a black man, no explanation given, just like they kick out Nick Cannon for no just reason, and we already discussed that. And that's an injustice. Steve Harvey was a good show, but here they are replacing him with a white person again, and it's just not fair. Caroline?
I heard, for example, and I know it's two different positions, but Al Roker, he's hired as a weatherman, and he's making like what, 2 million?
Well, he's probably up to more than that now, either 8 or 10, but no, about 3 or 4.
Very low. And then you had somebody like a Matt Lawyer making like 25 million.
Yeah, well, Al was more than just a weatherman. He did news as well. That's what made it so terrible. He was
right.
The news.
And he's doing, more than one role, and yet he's making less. Nowadays, I'm seeing a lot more colored people featured as on the news. They're anchoring, they're doing the news and stuff. And I do know that the same feeling I have every time I see any position where I see quite a bit of blacks, like whether you walk into Walmart and see all the black cashiers, or now you're seeing a few more blacks in the news since COVID, you know immediately that the salary range went down. Immediately. And I've worked in human resources, and I've seen that. I've seen where a white person could easily quit a job. They're making $20 an hour. And yet when they offer it to a black person, they're not offering more than $12, $14 an hour for the same exact position. So I've physically seen that.
Yes. And I have seen where they will have a black person on the job for this is another injustice in my opinion, much longer than the white person. The white person will come in brand new. They hire that person as a supervisor, and then the black person has to train that white person. That
Big
is so
time.
unfair.
Big time. Put the black person to train the little high school graduate how to be their supervisor. And sometimes the black person has a college degree.
Right.
And especially if that little high school graduate is blonde and have a particular look, you know, they raise their salary according to how she looks, what they think she should live off, and they give her all this money. I have had white people who they offered salaries that would say to me, I would have never expect to be paid this much for this position. I've had that. I've had white people say, I wasn't expecting this much salary,
Wow.
but they offered them
Right.
a greater salary based on how they look, based on if they like them, that type of thing.
And that reminds me of white privilege. And that's a white privilege they don't even realize they have, because just by being white, you're valued more in this society, in people's minds.
Correct.
But like you said before, a white person being paid more doesn't know they're being paid more. So therefore, they don't know that they have white privilege. You know what I mean? Right. We know they're white privilege. They don't always know that.
Yeah.
We can't always hate on them and say, "Oh, you know, you got that privilege," because half the time they don't even know. They just, you know, go, they apply for the job, they get good money, and they don't know that you would get less. You know.
Well, in some cases, Cherry Point, but we're not only just hating on them, we're educating them that they have white privilege. Because as one white person say, well, okay, so how do I give up this 400 years of white privilege? How do I change that if I've been living all my life that way? But we are educating them. You know, we don't like it, but we're not hating on everybody. Because those who don't know, we'll teach. He who knows not and knows he knows not, we'll educate them. But generally, you know, we lost Caroline for a little, she'll be in. We are not just hating, you know, that I know that's how the general white people see it, as if we're hating. No, we want change, and we want a conversation, and we want a change of behavior. And we know it's a gradual change, but we want it to act a little faster than it's been happening, especially in light of this time with George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks and Breonna Taylor and all the others. There's so many of them. In these times, we have to make changes so that it's more equitable. I believe that in America, they strive off injustice. They strive off racism. I think the racism make the white people look better and the black people look bad and worse and worse. And I believe that this country, more than any other country I go in the world, don't get me wrong, racism is everywhere, but this country really profits off racism. And that's my opinion.
That person who said, you know, I've lived all my life with privilege, how do I walk away from it? It reminds me of, well, should I say, one way they could probably work with it is sort of like, remember that show Friends? Remember the TV show Friends?
Yes.
Yeah. So there was a time where the contracts were up and they were re-signing them, and they offered one of them, I don't remember which one of them it was, but they offered one of them something like $1 million per show, but they were going to pay the rest of them because they felt like that person was the star. That's who most people like. So they offered that person $1 million a show and wanted to pay others something like, you know, $200,000 a show.
Right.
And that person said, look, if I'm going to pay all of us $1 million, I'm not in it.
Well,
so
that's unusual.
They wound up having to pay all of them the same thing. So people who have, but they were all white. They were all white. But I'm just saying, if people who have this extra privilege would say, when it comes to a black person who's getting less, if the person who has more privilege say, look, if you're only going to pay him since such, then I'm not going to do it. Or if you're going to pay him such and such, pay me the same thing.
Boy, that is
You know what I mean? That's one way of working on getting over that privilege.
Absolutely. And, you know, people would have to have a good heart, but that is definitely a very good way. I don't see it happening a lot when it's a white and black situation. I see it happen more as few, it doesn't happen very often, period, but I see it happening more when it's all white cast. And that person who said that had a good heart. And it's good that they came up, because generally what happens is they come down and meet them somewhere in the middle where everybody gets the same amount, so they're not out of money. But that was a perfectly good thing to do. So just let's conclude, because I thought Caroline is having some technical problems. Let's just conclude that injustice, we have just named a few areas of injustices in America. It's systemic, it's throughout, it's festered throughout the system. And I just don't like when people who are not feeling their injustice says it doesn't happen. You can't listen to the person that it's happening to. If we say there's racism, we're not being extra. We're feeling it. So he who feels it knows it. So don't just listen. And like you say, one suggestion that Sherry make is to share what you have, stand up for the less fortunate. I would add to that and say, not just have a dialogue with the person who is getting less, talk to them, but go talk to the boss or the head or the judge or the person in charge and tell them, look, this is just not fair. That's right. What I do.
Okay, and with that said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Enough Said with your hosts, Jemo, Caroline, and Cherry Poet. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube. And definitely check us out. New videos come out every Friday morning on Facebook and YouTube. Stay tuned.
IG.
Current events, injustice, police brutality, systematic racism, politics. What say ye? Enough said.